Your mind is either a weapon or a cage, and every single morning you wake up, you are laying another brick or sharpening another blade. Nothing stays neutral. If you don't actively train your mind, it doesn't rest, it drifts, absorbs, reacts, and slowly hands control over to fear, doubt, and comfort. Most people don't realize this is happening because it's quiet. It feels normal, but normal is exactly how cages are built. One unchecked thought at a time, one excuse that sounds reasonable, one morning where you let your emotions decide what kind of effort you'll give. Over time, those choices don't just influence your day, they define your limits. A weaponized mind is intentional. It questions weakness instead of obeying it. It understands that discomfort is not danger and resistance is not a stop sign. When pressure shows up, it doesn't panic, it focuses. This kind of mind doesn't wait for motivation because it knows motivation is unreliable. It moves based on values, not moods. It understands that growth is painful, repetitive, and often boring, but it also understands that pain with direction creates strength. Every challenge becomes a chance to sharpen perspective, discipline, and resilience. A caged mind, on the other hand, feels busy but goes nowhere. It overthinks, hesitates, and waits for perfect conditions that never come. It confuses safety with comfort and comfort with happiness. It avoids responsibility because responsibility feels heavy, not realizing that avoidance is what makes the weight unbearable. This mind reacts instead of choosing. It lets external circumstances dictate internal belief. Slowly, it forgets that it has agency at all. Every morning is a vote. When you choose to get up with intention, you are reinforcing the belief that you are in control. When you let the day drag you into reaction mode, you are handing over the keys. What you consume, what you say to yourself, what you prioritize in the first moments of consciousness, all of it is training. Your mind is always learning what you believe about yourself. Strength is built when you act despite resistance. Weakness is reinforced when you negotiate with it. The difference between a weapon and a cage is not intelligence, luck, or talent. It's repetition. It's the daily choice to aim your thoughts instead of letting them scatter. Over time, those choices compound into either precision or paralysis, power or limitation, freedom or confinement. Consistency beats motivation because motivation is emotional, and emotions are unstable. Some mornings you wake up fired up, clear, and ready to attack the day, and other mornings your mind is heavy, distracted, or resistant. If your progress depends on how you feel, then your future is being decided by variables you don't control. Consistency removes that weakness. It turns action into a system instead of a struggle. When you act consistently, you stop asking yourself whether you're ready and start proving that readiness is irrelevant. You show up because showing up is who you are, not because you're inspired in the moment. Motivation feels powerful, but it's temporary. It spikes when things are new or when someone says the right words, and then it disappears the moment things get repetitive or uncomfortable. Consistency thrives in boredom. It survives when there's no applause, no immediate reward, and no visible progress. That's where real growth happens. The mind adapts to what you repeatedly do, not what you occasionally feel excited about. Every consistent action sends a message to your brain that this behavior is non-negotiable. Over time, resistance fades because the decision has already been made. Consistency also builds trust with yourself. Every time you follow through, you reinforce the belief that you can rely on your own word. That trust becomes confidence, and confidence becomes momentum. You stop needing external validation because your identity is built on evidence. You've done the work too many times to doubt yourself. This is how ordinary actions compound into extraordinary outcomes, not through intensity, but through reliability. Small, disciplined actions performed daily reshape your standards, your expectations, and eventually your results. Motivation starts the engine, but consistency keeps the machine running when the road gets long and quiet. Beliefs shape behavior whether you're aware of them or not. What you repeatedly tell yourself about who you are, what you're capable of, and what you deserve quietly dictates how you act under pressure. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your beliefs. If you believe something is just the way you are, you'll defend that belief even when it's holding you back. The mind is wired to stay consistent with its identity, not its potential. Every action you take is a reflection of what you believe to be true. If you believe effort won't matter, you won't give full effort. If you believe failure defines you, you'll avoid risk. If you believe growth is possible, you'll tolerate discomfort longer than most people. Beliefs act like filters. They determine what you notice, what you ignore, and how you interpret setbacks. Two people can face the same challenge and walk away with completely different outcomes based solely on what they believe it means. The most dangerous beliefs are the ones you didn't consciously choose. They're inherited, absorbed, and reinforced through repetition. Challenging them feels uncomfortable because it threatens familiarity. But growth demands that discomfort. When you deliberately rewrite your beliefs, your behavior naturally follows. You stop forcing habits and start embodying them. Actions feel aligned instead of exhausting. Over time, new behaviors create new evidence, and that evidence strengthens the belief loop. Change doesn't start with doing more. It starts with believing differently, then acting in alignment until that belief becomes undeniable. Ownership is power, because the moment you stop outsourcing responsibility, you stop giving your power away. Blame feels relieving in the short term because it protects your ego, but it quietly robs you of control. When everything is someone else's fault, nothing is within your reach to change. Ownership is different. It's heavy, uncomfortable, and unforgiving, but it gives you leverage. When you say "this is on me," you're not accepting guilt. You're claiming authority. You're deciding that regardless of how things started, how they unfolded, or who was involved, your response belongs to you. People who win don't wait for fair conditions. They adapt. They don't waste energy arguing with reality. They study it and move accordingly. Ownership forces honesty. It removes the fantasy that someone is coming to fix things for you. That realization can feel brutal, but it's also clarifying. You stop waiting. You stop negotiating with excuses. You act because action is now the only logical option. This mindset doesn't mean you ignore obstacles. It means you refuse to let them define you. The more ownership you take, the more capable you become, because capability grows from repeated problem solving under pressure. Progress beats perfection because perfection is fear wearing a respectable mask. It pretends to be about standards, but it's really about avoiding judgment, failure, and discomfort. Waiting until you're ready keeps you safe, but it also keeps you stuck. Progress is messy. It involves missteps, half wins, and constant adjustment. But every imperfect action creates data, and data creates clarity. Movement teaches you things thinking never will. When you focus on progress, you give yourself permission to learn in real time. You stop trying to impress and start trying to improve. Momentum builds not from massive breakthroughs, but from showing up repeatedly and refining along the way. Each small step forward compounds, even when it feels insignificant in the moment. Over time, progress creates confidence because you can point to evidence. You didn't wait for flawless conditions. You moved anyway, and the gap between where you started and where you are becomes undeniable. Pain is tuition whether you choose to learn or not. Growth always costs something: time, comfort, pride, certainty. The question isn't whether you'll pay, but what you'll pay for. Avoiding pain has a price too, and it's usually higher. It shows up later as regret, frustration, and the quiet awareness that you settled for less than you were capable of. Productive pain is different. It has direction. It's the soreness after effort, not the ache of stagnation. When you understand pain as part of the process, it loses its power to stop you. You stop interpreting struggle as a signal to quit and start seeing it as proof that something is changing. The mind adapts when it's pushed, not when it's protected. Each time you lean into difficulty, you expand your tolerance and sharpen your resilience. Over time, what once felt overwhelming becomes familiar, and familiar becomes manageable, and manageable becomes strength. Confidence is built, not found, because waiting to feel confident before you act guarantees you'll stay exactly where you are. Confidence isn't a personality trait or a gift you're born with, it's a byproduct of evidence. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, no matter how small, you lay another brick. Every time you do the hard thing instead of the convenient one, you prove something to yourself that no one else can give you. Confidence doesn't come from hype or praise. It comes from repetition under resistance. When you show up tired, uncertain, or afraid and still do the work, your mind starts to trust you. And once that trust is there, doubt loses its grip. Your environment is either supporting your growth or silently sabotaging it. People like to believe they're strong enough to outthink their surroundings, but environment always wins in the long run. What you hear daily becomes familiar. What you see repeatedly becomes normal. If you're surrounded by excuses, distraction, and low standards, your mind will slowly adopt them without asking permission. This isn't weakness, it's conditioning. When you intentionally design your environment, you reduce friction between who you want to be and how you actually behave. You don't rely on willpower, you rely on alignment. Over time, the right environment makes discipline easier and progress more natural. Discipline is an act of self-respect because it's how you prove that your future matters more than your comfort. Discipline isn't punishment, it's protection. It protects you from short-term decisions that sabotage long-term goals. When you're disciplined, you're not being rigid, you're being clear. Clear about what you stand for, clear about what you're willing to tolerate, and clear about the standard you refuse to drop below. Discipline removes debate. When something is non-negotiable, energy stops leaking into hesitation. You act not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Over time, discipline becomes identity, and identity becomes effortless consistency. Failure is feedback when you stop personalizing it and start studying it. Most people don't fear failure itself, they fear what they think failure says about them, so they avoid risk, play small, and stay comfortable. But failure is information, and information is leverage. Every misstep reveals something that worked, something that didn't, and something that can be adjusted. When you detach your self-worth from outcomes, you gain the ability to iterate fast and improve faster. Failure only becomes permanent when you refuse to learn from it. The moment you extract the lesson, the experience stops being a loss and starts becoming an asset.